How to fix HMA PRO VPN not working on DD-WRT router. When experiencing any kind of issues with your DD-WRT router, please read the following article carefully and completely. It should deal with all possible issues and solutions. When you're unable to connect to the VPN with your DD-WRT router, there can be numerous reasons for this. In this article we will deal with the most common ones, and explain all possible fixes, workarounds and alternatives. Also take a look at the Peacock thread in the DD-WRT forums. It covers many problems and provides you with general information as well. http://www.dd-wrt.com/phpbb2/view-top-ic.php?t=51486. Contents: Pre-configuration, testing and client configuration, VPN configuration, troubleshooting, additional help and resources. Most routers can connect to a VPN out of the box, e.g. ASUS, TP-Link, Microtik, etc., but some models are using different VPN implementations that are incompatible and therefore can't connect. In these cases it's required to flash alternative firmware onto the routers, e.g. DD-WRT, OpenWRT, Tomato, for getting full VPN functionality. Pre-configuration: first things first, important things you should know before trying anything. The web configuration, usually at http://192.168.1.1, should look similar to the image on the right. Read this tutorial for help with flashing DD-WRT firmware, DD-WRT firmware installation tutorial. After flashing a router with DD-WRT firmware, it has the IP 192.168.1.1 by standard. So if there is any other device in your network that is already using that IP, you must change it, otherwise you'll have an IP conflict, resulting in one or multiple devices being inoperable. On the top right of the web configuration, you'll see the DD-WRT firmware version. In this image, it's V24SP2STD. Basically, there are the following firmware versions: Micro, Mini, STD, Big, Mega. If you wish to use OpenVPN registered as your protocol for connecting to the VPN, you must use Big or Mega versions, or at least STD. OpenVPN registered is not included in Micro or Mini firmware versions, so with them you can only use PPTP or L2TP protocol. When downloading the DD-WRT firmware from http://dd-wrt.com/site/support/router-database, you will usually find a firmware file for initial flashing and one or several normal firmware files. See the image on the right for an example of the ASUS RT-N16 router. That means, 1. When your router is still using its original firmware, e.g. the one from ASUS, D-Link, etc., you first need to flash DD-WRT firmware onto it using the firmware file for initial flashing. 2. When that is done, do not begin to configure it for VPN yet. The initial flashing firmware file does not have the full functionality and so will not work correctly. 3. So you now need to flash the normal firmware file, using the firmware update function within the web configuration of the router. Remember, if you wish to use OpenVPN registered protocol, you must use Big or Mega versions. If they are not available, try it with STD. It is not possible to use the same router for connecting to your internet provider via PPPoE and to the VPN server, via PPTP/L2TP/OpenVPN registered. At the same time, you need one device that connects you to your ISP, that is usually your DSL modem or gateway router/router modem combination, and one in this case that is your DD-WRT router. So your setup must be either DSL modem-DD-WRT router-clients, computers, TVs, gaming consoles, etc. or gateway router, combination-DD-WRT router-clients. Either way, you will need a first device that connects you to the internet, and then you connect the DD-WRT router behind it. Of course multi-router setups are also possible, for example, DSL modem-gateway router-DD-WRT router-clients, or gateway router-DD-WRT router-clients. All devices connected to the DD-WRT router will be using a VPN connection, and all devices connected before the DD-WRT router, so directly plugged into your DSL modem or gateway router, will use your standard internet connection. Testing and client configuration. Okay, before now configuring your DD-WRT router for the VPN, you should check if the router is able to connect to the internet at all. Make sure the DD-WRT router is connected to your DSL modem or gateway router. You can now check the tabs Status 1 and Status LAN to see the router's current connection status. Assuming your computer is already connected to the DD-WRT router, which is likely, since you are able to access the web configuration, you now need to change the network settings of your computer's network adapter. In Windows, that would be the TCP/IPv4 settings of the network adapter that is connecting your computer to the internet. It should look like this. Here it is important that you set the default gateway to the IP of the DD-WRT router. If it is still set to use DSL modem or gateway router's IP as gateway, or is set to obtain an IP automatically, the computer will most likely bypass the DD-WRT router and keep using your real IP and normal internet connection. Now, check if your computer is able to connect to the internet at all. E.g. serve to some website, e.g. http://ipaddress.com. If this is working fine, we can begin with the VPN configuration. By standard, so with default settings, the DD-WRT router should just forward the normal internet connection from its own gateway to the router's clients, e.g. your computer. If not, you can set the connection type in the tab setup/basic setup as following: VPN configuration. Now that we made sure that the DD-WRT router is connected to the internet, we can begin with the VPN configuration. Remember that you have 3 protocols available to connect to the VPN: PPTP, L2TP, and OpenVPN registered. PPTP and L2TP configuration is much easier than OpenVPN registered configuration, that's why it's a good idea to first try it with those. Connection quality, in any way, you should try both, to see which gives you the best connection regarding speed, latency, and stability. Note that you should always try several VPN servers to compare the results, and remember, the nearest VPN servers are usually also the fastest. Don't wonder if you're getting bad results when connecting to a VPN server from the other side of the planet. Use the speed guide feature of the early HMA VPN client software for Windows and Mac to find the best servers for your location and connection. If you're okay with the results, you can just keep using them and spare yourself the trouble with OpenVPN registered configuration. The OpenVPN registered setup: if you think you're having enough patience, basic network, and router knowledge, feel free to try the OpenVPN registered setup. There are several ways to configure your DD-WRT router with OpenVPN registered, all are listed in the article, OpenWRT Router OpenVPN Registered Setup. It is a good idea to get someone in real life with experience regarding routers and DD-WRT, who can give you a helping hand. Read the steps and recommendations below that can help you identifying and fixing possible connection problems with all protocols. Troubleshooting: if you're experiencing any kind of connection problems, regarding the VPN connection or the network connection between your devices, there are numerous things you should check and settings that you should change. For example, IP conflict: in case your gateway device, which is, as we learned, either your DSL modem or your gateway router, the device where the DD-WRT router gets his internet connection from, is using the IP 192.168.1.1, you'll get problems when trying to access your DD-WRT router after flashing it. This is because both devices will try to use the same IP, since after flashing a router with DD-WRT firmware, it is using this IP by default. That's called an IP conflict. To fix it, you must just change the IP of one of the devices to a different one. It should be in the same IP subnet, which means you could either keep letting your gateway device the IP 192.168.1.1 while changing the IP of the DD-WRT router to 192.168.1.2, or you do it the other way around, by changing the gateway device to 192.168.1.2 and letting the DD-WRT router use the 192.168.1.1 IP. Pass-through options: when using L2TP or PPTP protocols, you can enable pass-through options on your gateway device, usually required to allow other clients in the network besides the router to establish VPN connections. This can also solve connection issues on the router itself. So go into the web configuration of that device, check the manual on how to access it. Often it's http://192.168.0.1 or http://192.168.1.1, and search for options like PPTP pass-through, L2TP pass-through, and IPsec pass-through. Activate them all. Firewall issues: integrated firewalls of routers and modems are important to increase your network security, but they're also the most common cause of connection issues. Should you experience any kind of connection issues, one of your first steps to solve the problem should be disabling all firewall-related settings, respectively completely disabling the integrated firewalls of your gateway devices, e.g. DSL modem, gateway router. Of course you can reactivate it again later. Port forwarding: it's possible that your gateway devices are using port forwarding rules that cause the connection issues, e.g. if they are set to forward traffic from VPN-related ports to a certain device in your network, they are getting forwarded there instead of your DD-WRT router. Of course this results in your DD-WRT router being unable to connect, since he's not getting any answers from the VPN server. To fix that, there are several things you can try. Note: do this changes in the gateway of the DD-WRT router, not in the DD-WRT router settings itself. Removing current port forwarding rules to ensure that they are not responsible for the connection problems. Activating UPnP, which allows the client devices to set port forwarding rules dynamically as needed. WLAN versus LAN: using a wireless network has its advantages, but also brings a lot of possible problems with it. Basically it is always a good idea to first connect all your devices via Ethernet, so wired equals LAN, to exclude any issues that can be caused by using WLAN. When your network, the router, and the VPN are working fine, you can still convert your network to a WLAN, so making it wireless. When using WLAN, all devices must use the same channel and should be broadcasting their SSIDs. In case you increase the Wi-Fi range from 20 to 40 MHz or try overclocking your DD-WRT router, this can cause frequent reboots and damaging the router. IP subnets: a common problem is that devices are unable to see each other when they are in different IP subnets. For example, if the DSL modem is using 192.168.0.1 and the DD-WRT router is using 192.168.1.1, they are in different subnets, subnet 192.168.0.x and subnet 192.168.1.x. Solution would be to just put them into the same subnet, e.g. make the modem 192.168.1.1 and the DD-WRT router 68.1.2 or vice versa. DD-WRT firmware versions. Sometimes you may have just been using a bad DD-WRT firmware version. Get back to http://ddwrt.com/site/support/router-database, download a different one. Flash it through the firmware update function within the DD-WRT web configuration and try all connection methods again. Hardware damage. Routers are pretty sensitive and easy to break. Often the problems are not caused by wrong configuration, the routers might just have a thermal problem or are damaged in some other way. Although flashing routers usually voids the guarantee, you can give it a try and flash original firmware back onto the router and try to give it back in return for the money. Then get a new one, a better one. We are recommending the Asus RT-N16, Linksys WRT54GL or Linksys E4200. HMA DD-WRT Open VPN registered auto installer return/bin/sh, eval, line 1/TMP/INSTSH. Not found. This means the router was unable to download the configuration script, because it is not connected to the internet. Make sure that the router is able to connect to the web, before running the auto installer. Get diagnostic and connection logs. To get log information from your DD-WRT router, please go to the commands page and run the following commands: ifdbls-lnv ifdbls-tnat-lnv ifconfig-root and also, enable syslogroot under services/services and enter cat/tmp/var/log/messages in the commands page. If you're experiencing any issues with your DD-WRT configuration and you're asking for help, you should include this logs. Additional help and resources, DD-WRT support forums.